everyone, it's Jennifer from Flux. In this video, I'm going to show you how to crochet this beautiful Inkwell Shawlette. This is done with kind of a variegated speckly yarn. It's very neutral and delicate and just a lovely piece just to kind of wrap around yourself. You can really dress this up or down, it's up to you. I've added some beaded little tassels at the bottom to both kind of weigh it down as you wear it, but also add like an elegant little sparkle to the bottom of it as you wear it. It's just a lovely piece. So we're going to learn how to make this. This is made, we have a kind of a flat bottom and the sides come up and out. So we're going to start from the bottom and work upwards and outwards using some very basic double crochets and chains. Really easy stitches, but it makes a beautiful lace. And then we're going to learn how to add these. Now these are totally optional, these little beaded fringes, but we're going to learn how to add them too at the end. Our finished piece, if we go from the bottom where our starting chain is and draw a straight line up, that is about 14 inches from the bottom to the top. If we come out the side here and go from the bottom edge of our chain and kind of go straight out to our point here, that is 18 inches. And then if we look at the top edge of our wrap, going from the side point and go all the way along this top edge, that is about 50 inches. Now, I'm going to give you the multiples later on in this video so that you can make the bottom edge of yours wider or narrower. And also, if you work more or less rows of the pattern, if you work more rows, for example, it will be taller and wider. So you can easily change the dimensions of this if you need to. Now the fringe on either end, our beaded fringe, adds an extra 3 inches to each side. So this is 3 inches tall and this is 3 inches tall. So if you were looking for a specific size, take that into account as well. So let's get started. For this project, you'll need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle. We're going to be using a 5mm H crochet hook for this project. You also need a tape measure. This will be super helpful if you want to change the multiples or any of the dimensions. And we'll talk a little bit more about customization later, but this is helpful to have if you want to do that. Now let's talk about this gorgeous skein of yarn that I have here. This yarn, this is some fingering weight yarn, so some lightweight yarn, and I'm going to be using 463 yards of this. This is a fingering weight yarn from Candy Skein, and they make really pretty yarn. I'll put the link down below if you want to check out what they have. Their colors are really awesome. This particular colorway is called Silver Spoon, and there's a candy charm on it because it's Candy Skein, so I thought that was fun. But anyway, this is kind of like a cream base with some gray kind of gradient and some speckles throughout. So I just love this yarn. I've actually had this for a while. I've been saving it for something special, so I thought this project would be perfect. But if you need to substitute, just look for a fingering weight yarn, 463 yards of that. A sock weight yarn would be totally fine. Either one would be great. So let's get started. As an option, if you want to do the cute beaded tassels like I showed at the beginning of the video, you'll need some beads. Now I chose some beads that matched my yarn. This is shades of gray and cream, so I chose some silver beads. These are kind of like a round faceted silver bead and then some like glass tube shaped beads. Now it could be anything you want. You could do a contrasting color as well or nothing at all. You could just have your points just crocheted. But if you want to add the beaded tassels, and I'm going to show you how to do it later in the video, you'll need some beads. You'll also need a small needle, and you'll want to make sure that your needle can pass through the holes of your beads as well. And if your yarn is thin, like the one I'm using, you can use that to string the beads up as well. So some beads, your yarn. If the yarn is too thick, just grab some thread and you can use that. Again, this is totally optional, but I'm going to show you how to do this if you want some beaded tassels on your wrap as well. Okay, so the shape of our wrap is going to be a flat bottom, and then it's going to increase as we go outward and then have a flat top. So what we're going to do is work a starting chain of 100 to get the bottom width that we want. Now, if you need to change it for any reason, just know that the multiple is 6 plus 4. If you're not familiar with the concept of multiples, all it means is when you're doing your starting chain, you're going to go 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 and so forth until you get the width that you want, and then add 4 more chains onto that, okay? But we're going to do 100 chains. Okay, so I'm going to pull a little bit of yarn. Now, if you notice at the beginning of the video, we had a skein and I wound it into a cake. So just as a side note, if you have a skein, you'll need to wind it into a cake or into a ball as well. So what we're going to do to begin is wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up a loop, and tighten. Then we're going to start on our 100 chains. So to make a chain, wrap the yarn around the hook and bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 97, 98, 99, and 100. So this will give you an idea, our starting chain here will give you an idea of kind of the bottom edge of our shape that we're going to create. So let's move on to row 1. So for row 1, we're going to sort of set up our stitches and then we'll move on to row 2. Row 2 is the row you'll repeat for the whole rest of your project, okay? So what we need to do for row 1 is in the 6th chain from the hook. This loop here does not count. So go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 6. So in that 6th chain from the hook, we're going to work 2 double crochet, chain 3, 2 double crochet. So to make a double crochet, wrap the yarn around your hook, insert it into that 6th chain from the hook, and bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on the hook. Wrap the yarn around the hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, wrap the yarn around the hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. Now in that same chain, we're going to work another double crochet. Then we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And in that same chain, work 2 more double crochet. So that's 1 double crochet and 2 double crochet. Next, we're going to skip 5 chains. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then in the chain after that, we're going to do the same thing. So work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, then chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and in the same chain, 2 more double crochet. So 1 double crochet and 2 double crochet, okay? And then we're just going to kind of do this all the way across, okay? So once again, skip 5 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in the chain after that, we're going to work our next little fan or double V, whatever you'd like to call it. So 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, then chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and then 2 more double crochet in the same chain. 1 and 2, okay? So you can start to see here we have some nice stitch work happening. All right, so skip 5 chains, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in the chain after that, we're going to do the same thing. So 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, then chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and 2 double crochet all in that same chain. So 1 and 2, okay? So continue across working that same sequence, skip 5 chains. So let's do one more together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in the chain after that, do the same thing. 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and 2 double crochet in the same chain. All right, so continue working the same sequence all the way across. When we get towards the end of our chain here, I'll show you how to finish up row 1, and then we'll move on to row 2 rather. All right, we're almost at the end of the row here. I'm just working that last little fan here. Remember, it was 2 double crochet, 3 chains, 2 double crochet. I'm just going to work that last fan. Now you should have 4 chains left at the end of the row. So what we're going to do is skip over to the very last chain And then at the end, we're going to do a fan in that last chain, okay? So we're going to work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and 2 double crochet. Now, if you wanted your wrap to have straight sides and go straight up, we would just put a double crochet at that last chain, but we're going to put another fan so that our sides can start pushing outward, okay? So row 1 is complete, and let me just zoom out just a little so you can see here we have a very nice beginning to our piece. We have some lovely little fans going on, okay? So let's zoom back in because we're going to start in on row 2. Row 2, like I mentioned before, is the row that you'll work on for the rest of your piece, okay? So what we want to do for row 2 is we want to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn our work. So just kind of flip this little row over you just made. And then we're going to start working into the chain 3 spaces. So remember we did our 2 double crochet, then the chain 3, and then 2 double crochet. We created a chain 3 space. So right in the middle of those fans is a big space here. So we're going to work right into those. So we're going to work the same fan that we worked before into those chain 3 spaces. So no skipping or counting of chains this time. We're just working into those spaces. So go ahead into that first fan and work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and 2 double crochet. And that's all you have to do for this row. We're going to do a few more together. And you can see how our fans are going to start stacking on top of one another, okay? So let's do a couple more. Hop over to the next fan and we'll work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and 2 more double crochet in that same chain 3 space. So 1 and 2. All right, hop over to the next chain 3 space and work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and 2 more double crochet in that same space, okay? So what you're going to do is just continue doing the same thing all the way across with your fans, and you can see how they're kind of stacking up very nicely. And we're just going to do this all the way across. So I'm going to go ahead and move across, and when we get towards the end of this row, we'll rejoin and I'll show you how to finish up row 2. All right, just coming up to the end of row 2, our last fan we're going to work into. So we're going to work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and 2 double crochets all in that same fan, okay? And then to finish up the row, because we want to keep expanding and working outward, we're going to go into the turning chain. So it might be kind of folded down and out of sight, but if we look at our fan here at the bottom, you can see we have our 2 double crochets, the chain, the 2 double crochets, but off to the side here is a turning chain, and that creates a little space. So in the turning chain space, we're also going to work a fan. So go into that space and once again work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and 2 more double crochets, 1 and 2, just like that. Okay, so once again, let's zoom out so we can kind of look at our handiwork here. We're starting to get some really nice displays of the speckly kind of ombre yarn effects that we have. That's really fun. Now, if you're using self-striping or solid, it will look equally beautiful, but we're starting to get a little bit of height. So for the rest of your piece and for the rest of the yarn that you're using, just keep working row 2 over and over and over and over again, and your piece is going to start growing outward and upward. So each row you make, it will increase in width and height, and you're just going to keep going and repeating row 2. So when we come back, we'll have quite a bit more height on our piece, and we're going to learn how to finish up the piece and then put some optional beaded tassels on the ends, either end of our shape here. So keep going with row 2 and we'll rejoin in just a minute and finish it up. Okay, just working those last few stitches of the row. And then what we're going to do is finish this up with some lovely bead fringe next. Okay, so I just finished, and I have a little bit of yarn that I'll use to do our beaded fringe. Again, that's totally optional if you want to kind of squeeze another row in instead of reserving the yarn for your tassel. That's totally fine too. Okay, so what we want to do is just cut the yarn, and we're going to wrap the yarn around the hook and just kind of fasten off, okay? Now, let's get these ends out of our way because we're going to add some fringe to this, okay? So just grab a tapestry needle, and really easy, you're just going to go in one direction with your needle, just the best you can. Try to get it in between the loops of your stitches because this is reversible. So we're going to go in one direction, and then we'll come back in the other direction. And then grab your scissors again, give it a tug and a little snip. And then do the same with the other tail. Now I used just one skein of yarn for this. If you had multiple skeins of yarn, you may need to deal with some more ends. It really depends on what yarn you used and how big you made yours. So once again, we'll take this end and we'll go in one direction. I like to do that to lock in that tail. And then we'll come back in the other direction with our tail. Just nice and neat as possible. And then give that a little snip. If you have any more tails, take care of those. And now we're ready for our beaded fringe. This is just a really kind of dressy, elegant touch. You don't have to do this. Now with this particular wrap, I like to, it wants to curve a little bit, and that's normal. That's the normal shape of it, just because of the stitches kind of fan it out. But you can sort of like straighten up those edges if you want to before you start. And if you look at your shape, okay, we started here at the bottom edge, and then we worked upward and outward. And so these top 2 points, so this point at the top edge and then all the way across to the other point is where we'll be putting our beaded fringe. So we can kind of fold that down so it's closer. You could do yarn fringe too if you prefer. So let me grab my beads and then we'll do the next part. Okay, so I have my beads and my needle, scissors. Now the yarn we used is pretty fine, so you could use that for some of these larger beads, but like this one has a pretty large opening. But for some smaller beads, if you're encountering this and can't get your yarn through, you could use some embroidery floss. And the neat thing about embroidery floss is, let me just cut a piece off so we can see. It's actually multiple strands kind of twisted together. This one I believe is a 6-ply. It's just the regular cotton like DMC floss. So what you would do is take your needle and just kind of like pull it apart, and you can get a pretty small little thread by doing that if your beads are really tiny. Now this one would be good for some of the larger opening beads that I have, but if you have some tiny beads and you're having trouble with them, these are tapestry needles. This is pretty small. This isn't quite as small as a sewing needle, and the eye is a little bit bigger. This is what I use when I do counted cross stitch, if you've ever done that before. These are tapestry needles. This is also DMC. I prefer this brand for embroidery. But this is a number 24, and you can see they come in a pack of 6 or so, and you can see if you pull one out how much smaller it is than your regular needle. So if you need to get really tiny with your needle to create these strands, these fringy strands, you know, go for it. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our embroidery floss or yarn or whatever you're using, and I'm going to pull a strand off of this, and we'll try it that way. And you might need to twist as you pull, because it is twisted together, just like yarn has plies. This also has plies. But we're going to create almost like jewelry for our wrap, okay? So I'm just kind of untwisting this. I'm showing you this too, so if you're unfamiliar with the embroidery floss, you can kind of see how we do it. So just get a strand or 2 off there. And I need to zoom way in because this is pretty small. And we're just going to thread our needle. And when you do your fringe, you can do straight pieces that just sort of hang straight down in multiple strands, or you could do a couple of loops. It's up to you, whatever look that you're after. But we're just going to take some of our beads here. Now I'm going to string one here, and then we're going to tie the bead in a knot so it kind of stops the other beads from falling off, okay? Okay, I strung a few beads on here, just kind of mixed it up, nothing really in any specific pattern. You can get really creative with this part. I kept mine more random. But what I'm going to do is you want to hold it up to your piece before, and I made mine different lengths too. Now we'll trim some of this back when we're done, but we're going to hang it from here at the bottom. So what we want to do is kind of like tie them all together, like sort of in a bundle. So I'm just wrapping it around my finger, and then we're going to just kind of pull it taut, and then kind of like snug it in there. Now I did a combination of the silver, some like glass beads. I have all kinds of little beads over here. And then we're going to tie it to our piece, okay? Now remember, when you do this, you'll have to be very careful when you wash this piece or block it that you don't break your little beads off. Okay, so what I'm going to kind of do is split my bundle strands in half, go down here to the bottom to one of these stitches, and then just sort of like tie it right on there, okay? And we'll trim out all this back in a minute. But I'm going to kind of, it's very small, so take your time. It's like a little delicate kind of piece to wear. But I'm just going to like tie it right on there. And you want to do a couple of strong knots, because anything you wear, you know, it's going to be moving around and, you know, thrown down or whatever. So you want to just make sure everything's nice and secure. So I did about 3 strong knots on here. Just tie it down. And then we can just trim. This is like really thin stuff, so I'm just going to kind of trim it down. Okay, scoot all this out of the way. And then we have some strands down here at the bottom. I tied some beads on to get started. So I have some, just some little strands at the bottom. Okay, now you can make your fringe fuller, but I thought that was just really nice and pretty and delicate. So you'll just want to repeat for the other side. It doesn't have to be an exact mirror image, but you know, I did 5 strands, so I'll probably do 5 strands again just to make it look kind of symmetrical, but it doesn't have to be exactly symmetrical. So just repeat for the other side. Okay, I did the other side and it looks so cute. It's just real simple and just adds a little sparkle. So that is how you crochet the Inkwell Shawlette. I hope you enjoyed this pattern as much as me. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again.